the correlation between spirituality and hair, I looked at the yogic perspective of hair. And they said, from a yogic perspective, hair is an amazing gift of nature that can actually help raise the Kundalini energy. Kundalini energy is described as the creative life force. When the hair is at its natural full length and coiled over the anterior frontal, that is the place in your brain right behind the brow. And it says for men, when the hair is coiled over this, and for women, when it's coiled over the posterior frontal lobe, it has the ability to draw the pranic energy. Pranic energy refers to life energy. So the pranic energy is then drawn into the spine, and then this force, and the force of this downward energy and the positive energy of Kundalini creates this balance. And the balance, which in turn creates vitality, intuition, and tranquility. So as we can see, hair isn't just hair. Hair has more, a more symbolic and more spiritual connotation to it being hair. It draws me to the prospect of Christ was a Nazarite. And we know that the Nazarite were not permitted to cut their hair. They were not even allowed to have a comb through their hair. The only time that the Nazarite was allowed to cut his hair was when his vow was completed. Samson was a Nazarite. So when Delilah cut his hair, what happened? His power left him. Hair, and I've learned from my experience, nothing is said by happenstance. Making reference to hair is symbolic and it meant something. I'm trying to wrap this up as quickly as I can. So as we can see throughout history, hair was more than just an accessory. It was a source of identity. Further than that, it was our connection to spirituality. In Kabbalah, it says anything that is narrow or thin, the concept of European beauty within the black community, that our hair has to be long and thin and unhealthy. In Kabbalah, it said it's equated to something that's known as din. Din means judgment. Anything that is narrow means or is equated to spiritual harshness. So the fact that our hair is thick and bountiful means that we've always been a spiritually aware people. We've always had an abundance of spiritual connection. In Judaism, the same word for hair is used for gate. So it symbolizes that your hair is equal to a gateway or a portal between the spiritual and the physical. I'm wrapping it up, Rochelle. I'm wrapping it up. So I found all of these things very interesting, and then even more so, and it just drew me back to slavery. What was one of the first things that they did when they enslaved us? They cut our hair. We lost our identity. We lost our spirituality. And if you can keep a people spiritually oppressed, then you can keep them mentally and physically enslaved. In concluding, I wanted to go into Genghis Khan and Egypt and ancient Kemet and all of those different things because they were extremely fascinating. But I'll just mention Genghis Khan quickly. Genghis Khan conquered China, and he said he considered the Chinese to be a very wise and intelligent people who could not allow themselves to be subjugated. He therefore required all women in the country to cut their hair and wear bangs because he knew that this would serve to keep them timid and more easily controlled. Cutting bangs, which covered the forehead, impeded a process of transmittance of light to the pineal gland. The pineal gland sits between the anterior frontal lobe and the posterior frontal lobe, which is somewhere in the middle here, and is known in the ancient world to be the soul of the seat to the soul. This is where your third eye is open, or your sixth sense, as they say, becomes aware. There's an awareness that occurs here. So I found it interesting, from Egypt to Asia, to America in the army and the navy, what's the first thing they do? They cut your hair. Even in India, the Native Americans had a tracking ability on parallel, and they found from the time that they cut their hair, they lost that ability almost instantaneously. So hair is more than just hair. Hair is not just hair. It's an extension of our nervous system. It can be correctly seen as an exteriorized nerve, a type of highly evolved feelers or antennae that transmits vast amounts of information to the brainstem, the limbic system, and the neurocortex. But most importantly, it is our gateway, our access to our spirituality. Thank you. Yeah.
I don't know about you all, but I think I just was in a science lesson. But what did I hear? I heard that your hair is not just hair. It's an extension of your nervous system. It also signifies status. It also gives off messages. It's a connection to spirituality. I also heard that, you know, those black magazines, they were fooling me for many years, telling me that if I purchase this item, my hair going to grow longer, when it had to do with my genetics. So it was fooling me. Yeah, okay. I want a refund. But I want to thank you for that presentation. Now, last but definitely not least, we're going to have Dr. Rhoda Arrindell.
Happy International Women's Day to everyone, the women especially, and also to the men. And thanks to Rochelle and the rest of her group for this invitation. I'm going to try to speak in fast mode here. My discussion is titled Hair and Identity, a Work in Progress. My very wise friend, Fabian Badijo, often paraphrases Aimé Césaire, saying that identity is not just about who we are, but more so about who we want to be. I often think about this expression when I listen to us, especially adults, when we ask children what they'd like to be when they grow up. What exactly do we expect children to say when we ask this question? Don't we know that their answers will be based on images that they see around them, and not necessarily based on any deep thinking on their parts? And true to character, the children often give the standard fantasy answers. A doctor, a lawyer, a fireman, a nurse, hardly a politician, but people they can identify with in the community. Growing up, I too fantasized about being a police officer, a dancer, meeting Bob Marley in person, and being the first dreadlock judge in the Netherlands Antilles. In that order. As children become adults, some abandon their childhood fantasies altogether, others actively pursue them through education, other preparatory activities, while others subconsciously get to live them out, usually ending up in related jobs or other activities either by coincidence or divine intervention. I would say that I belong to that last group, sort of subconsciously pursuing some of these childhood fantasies, because somewhere along my life's journey, I became a dancer, did not meet Bob Marley, but met his children in person, and studied law, though I never became a police officer or that dreadlocked Antillean judge. Maybe for good reason. Though I once came pretty close to being a sheriff. Looking back now, it seems ironic that teacher, activist, parent, politician were not on my fantasy list, and were among the things at one point I vowed I would never be in life, except for activists, which just happened naturally. While I can be tempted to say that who or where I am today in life's journey was not entirely due to an active campaign on my part, I do believe that all of my past experiences and memories have shaped the way I identify myself, because I remember, for example, my mother had my hair ironed for the first time, and I must have been around 6 or 7 because I was going to be in a wedding. And I can't count the amount of burns I got. I remember, against my mother's wishes, her co-workers came to our home when I was 12 to straighten my hair because I had just become a teenager and going to high school, and this, along with a brand new set of earrings, which her boss paid to get my ear spares at Dr. Arduin's father's shop there on Front Street. It was your grandfather. I remember the little store. Because this was part of my rite of passage. When my hair started breaking, or what we call eating out then, and a hairdresser lady from Curacao had to cut it all off, almost bald, just to regrow it with a combination of rose water, castor oil, mint oil, Vaseline, and I believe the fifth ingredient was Epsom salt. I remember how I cried and avoided the public as much as I could in the beginning, and the size of the purple rollers that I'd used to set my hair. And it had to be the ones with the grip because it was really so short you couldn't do anything else. These were the same size as the ones I had used on my hair, the hair of my neighbor's doll a few years before. I remember buying a box of straight every 2 months or so to do my hair, and then sleeping on very hard rollers to set my hair right. I remember when hair extensions first came to St. Maarten, and I was among the privileged girls to get to wear them because my best friend Esther had brought them from New York, where they were in. And in those days, you took them out, you washed them, you put them back in. And you had sisters in the family who would fight who could get to wear them now. I remember during my first year in college in Miami, I bought an electric ironing comb, a novelty to me, that you could get it in electric form, to straighten my hair when I had made a decision that I did not want to use chemical relaxers anymore. And in my later college years in New York, I would simply either braid my hair or wear it in what we call cuckoo plaits, with a bandana, along with a button that read, "I'm a happy nappy." I remember instances of people, some almost total strangers, who would come up to me and tell me that my hair needed doing, when I decided simply to give my hair a break by not relaxing it. And I remember clearly the day my precious 3-year-old Akila came home with a drawing of herself that she'd made in her early stimulation class. What to do? And I calmly sat there and I said, "Sweetie, Mommy's going to teach you how to draw plaits." And so we learned, because she said to me, I said, "But Akila's not your hair." She said, "Yeah, I know." I said, "But why didn't you say?" "Because I can't draw plaits." So I taught her how to draw plaits. And I remember clearly the day I decided to abandon the comb altogether and just simply not open my plaits anymore. And so began the locking process. I remember, especially in the beginning stage, how other locked heads, especially men, would give me that special smile and call me sister or rasta, just because of my locks. And most recently, I have memories of people asking me when I was going to cut my locks, now that you're in government. A good friend even called to congratulate me on the day, you know, when I got into office. Say, "Congratulations, you know, good friend, when you will cut them locks." And there's still the memory of my mother telling me one day that they, and she mentioned some names, say they don't want no rasta in their government. You know how sensitive mothers can get when you touch their children. So she told them a thing or two. I believe that all these memories and many more have affected and shaped my identity, sometimes making me very conscious about certain actions I have taken at certain stages in my journey, but especially in raising my children. And while I like to think of myself as a modern-day parent, allowing my children to freely express themselves within my boundaries, of course, my biggest hair challenge came when Akila was about 14, attending the St. Dominic High School. And after we had survived a year in Puerto Rico, where she was, you know, in the school that she was at, she was like one of the very few dark-skinned and a little taller children. On a regular basis, when I would braid her hair, we would have the hair talk. And on this particular day, she asked me if she could straighten her hair. And I immediately said no, giving the usual speech of how beautiful her hair was in its natural state. Akila said I was being unfair because as a parent I was always telling them that they had the right to make certain choices, and now I was denying her this particular choice. I stood my ground, but I can't say I felt comfortable at the end of the conversation. She too, being her mother's child, regularly brought up the topic, and for a while I was conflicted about this very strong position that I had taken about her hair. At one point, almost about a year after this initial conversation, I even went out and bought a box of texturizer and hid it in my closet, promising myself to give her at least texturized hair for her 16th birthday if she still wanted this. I don't know exactly what happened or what changed in Akila between 14 and 16, but her 16th birthday came and went without much of a hair incident. And I said it probably had something to do with the sweet 16th birthday bash she had. Natural hair and all. Then off to college she went at the tender age of 17, and as usual I braided her hair for the journey. When she was home for Christmas last year, one day after I'd washed, colored, and braided the hair to her liking, she, in one of her very ecstatic moods, ran up to me, kissed me, and screamed, "I love my hair. Mommy, thank you for never letting me straighten it." I understandingly smiled and simply said, "You're welcome." And again, when she left for school in January, I braided her hair so it could last the full term, since this is her last term and I knew she would be busy with exams and practicals, etc., and wouldn't have time to worry about hair. And while she is away, like every normal parent, I try to offer my support, trying to call her every night before going to sleep. Then came this, at 12:02 a.m. on Thursday this past week, about an hour after we had already said our nighty nights and I love yous. And this is the text. "Hey," this is how she talks to me when she's ready. "I forgot to tell you on the phone, and I don't know if you're awake, but when you get the chance, I'd like to talk to you about an idea that I don't even know how to put into words, but like a natural hair campaign in St. Maarten. I was even thinking of the theme, Dare to be Natural. I don't know if it's out there already. And like promote natural hair and lifestyle, like embracing natural hair and all its beauty. And to make it clear that it's not to put down females that do the perms or the weaves or whatever, but that to embrace a female and her comfort in wearing her natural hair, regardless of its texture, length, etc. And despite the only standard of beauty being a female of a certain size and hair type. And I was thinking, with the book fair coming up, and how they usually have the natural hair workshop, that it would all tie in somehow. And that we'd get women of all ages and sizes, even races, that embrace their natural hair and start an ad campaign. And it went on and on and on and on. Because I got up and I had to, answer. And I said, well, why don't you hook up with Rochelle? She's doing this thing, And I was amazed that she didn't know about this panel. Because Akila turned 19 in January. And she regularly stays in touch with everything that's going on here through social media and all her friends out in social media land. And I find it strange that she was not aware of this panel or that I was on it. I fell asleep Thursday morning with a smile on my face, thinking about the woman child I have raised and how her identity is being shaped. For me, it's all still a work in progress. Thank you.
Rhoda. So what did I hear? I heard, teach the young ones to love their hair so that when they are older, they may not stray to the other side. I also heard that we can keep our natural hair even though we climb the social status ladder. Embrace the natural hair, and you don't need to conform. You do not have to choose to straighten or relax your hair. Your hair tells you something about yourself, and it should tell you that I love who I am and I need you to love me too. And even if you don't love me with my natural hair, I'm still going to keep it. So I heard that as well. So what else did I hear? I am a happy nappy? Yes. Wow. So I heard that even back then, she was a revolutionist back then. And she has kept off the trend. So with that, and I also heard, locking your hair doesn't mean that you're Rasta. locking your hair is just a choice, a preference. And you don't need to go out and start eating a bunch of items. and starting to, you know, refuse to eat the meat. Embrace the meat if you so choose. So, with that said, we have heard from all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 panelists. Now I'm going to give you the opportunity to pose questions.